Shocker. Portland City Council votes to use new police funding to, get this, maintain their parks littered with the homeless population. Public safety? No public safety. Let's get into it. Let's talk about Portland's defunding of the police. Here we go. So I want to make clear that this is a preliminary budget. They're going to have to do a bunch of work on this, have some more votes, but this is the direction they're heading. Literally defunding the police. Now, there's arguments being made that since they don't have as many police officers as they need, the money, it isn't really necessary right now. Hey, let's just use it on parks. What about when you do have those hires and you need that funding? What about the optics of defunding the police again when out of 50 continental United states, where do you think Oregon fits in as number of police per population? Number 48th. They're almost dead last, according to the FBI statistics of how many police you need per population for basic public safety. Hey, we're almost dead last. There's only a couple of states worse than us, but let's go ahead and shift some of that funding from the police budget into the park system. We want to have nice parks for our kids to play in while they avoid the homeless nut jobs on drugs screaming at the trees with excrement everywhere. Used to be hypodermic needles down little Johnny and Susie's slide, but we're not doing that anymore. We're doing tin foil so that they can smoke their Fetty. That's what we're doing. People dying on the sidewalks. This is literally why Portland can't hold its downtown core together, because of this kind of nonsense. You gotta have more cops to make things safe. You gotta have more cops. Period. I don't care who you are. You're a moron if you think otherwise. Well, we can just get the social worker in there. Should be fine. Portland City Councilors tentatively approved a budget that patches gaps in parks maintenance with police funding. What a bunch of idiots. Seriously, these guys are morons. The decision came just under the wire after a 12-hour Wednesday meeting, but not without fireworks. I have never seen a city council be so giddy to cut public safety. What are you thinking? Well, you're a bunch of commies, and you think this is great because you don't like the police. You love defunding the police because you don't really care about public safety. Seattle's same way. We've been having a massive issue getting enough cops, but you've demonized policing and police, people in law enforcement. They're like, Seattle? Nah. Portland? Nah. And you hear all this talk, all this narrative about how can we get more police in here? How can we encourage them to come to our community? Well, it's not by doing harebrained stunts like this. With a midnight deadline to approve a balanced budget, more than 120 proposed budget amendments on the table, 12 councilors were forced to rush through funding decisions and left many on the table. They saved the most controversial proposal until the last 30 minutes. The amendment, jointly led by councilors Candace Avalos and Angelita Murillo, they are both individuals that are very concerned about justice for housing, justice for tenants, justice for, but not really about public safety for their constituents. Could care less, because otherwise they wouldn't be doing this nonsense. And it's not necessarily the $1.9 million. It's the optics that this represents. It says to the community, we don't really care about your public safety. We care more about parks than you being able to get to the park safely. Yeah. Moved $1.9 million in new funding Mayor Keith Wilson had earmarked for the Public Portland Police Bureau into the Portland Parks and Recreations Maintenance Fund, which Wilson had proposed cutting by $7 million starting in July. This is not about reducing police effectiveness, said Avalos. It's about a balanced approach to public safety that includes well-maintained parks where families feel safe gathering. Well, if you don't have enough cops, there's going to be no safe gathering in your parks. Period. Oh, weird. I hadn't thought about that. No, you have thought about that. You just don't give a damn. That's why you're doing ridiculous nonsense like this. Wilson's $1.9 million proposal was meant to speed up officer recruiting and training, but not create new jobs. Let's see. You're 48th out of 50 states, and you need to speed up officer recruiting and training. You need to do that. And that was the intention. But let's go ahead and have better looking parks. Anywho, this is how you get a situation that Portland's in. This is how you get a situation that Seattle's in, with terrible leadership who has their head up their asses. Plain and simple. The Bureau has struggled for years to swiftly hire new officers, and even after being hired, it takes new recruits 18 months to complete training. Currently, about 90 of the 877 available positions in Portland Police Bureau are vacant. You know, on any given day, any precinct has multiple vacancies, not vacancies, but they don't have enough people to cover the absolute basics of public safety. And that's why your 911 calls take forever, if ever the police are able to come out. That's why you don't have basics of public safety, because you don't have enough cops. You need more cops up in there, period. You need more cops to make this go. You need more cops to make a community safe. I don't care about all that other nonsense. Oh, we're going to put a social worker in there. I don't care about responding to the homeless with somebody else. You need more cops. It's not that hard to figure out. You've got all these other equations where you're trying to work around that. Guess what? None of them work. Get more cops. Your public safety becomes more viable. You've got more police to handle things, but you've demonized policing, and this is what you get. Not that hard to figure out, right? Both Avalos and Murillo argued that because Portland Police Bureau currently has funding for these vacant positions, it doesn't need the additional money. Until it does. It does need additional money. Whatever resources they can get, they can use, because they are how many hundreds of police officers short of being able to provide basic public safety? Hundreds. They pointed to a recent poll. This poll was literally mentally incapacitated, commissioned by Councilor Steve Novick and Council President Elena Pertl-Guni, that showed Portlanders would prefer cuts to police over parks. Yeah, but that was insane. And it was based on a handful of a handful of districts that have got a bunch of nut jobs. They've got nut jobs that live there, that think defunding the police is still a good concept, that think that funding entities like domestic violence or domestic terrorism, like Black Lives Matter, is a good thing. So make that make sense. Portland Police Chief Bob Day couldn't say how withholding the dollars would specifically impact his department, but it will be a reduction in services. He took offense to the decision, as he should. Clearly, some of the councilors don't respect or trust the responsibility given to me in the role of chief police, Day said, pointing to the recent effort he's put towards officer recruitment. Parks Director Adina Long was more certain about how the $19 million would be spent in her bureau. This funding supports critical tasks like restroom cleaning. Get this. This is the best. We're down here right now. Let's see. Public safety or restroom cleaning in the park. Having enough cops to come out when you get assaulted, or restroom cleaning. How about graffiti removal? Because you don't drop the hammer on Antifa and a bunch of other nut jobs running around your city. Because you don't have enough cops. How about roof repairs and maintenance of dog parks, playground, trails, lighting, and more? You're literally placing those higher on the priority than public safety for your constituents. But you know what? This is what your constituents want. So I say, give it to them. She added that the cuts laid out in Wilson's budget will directly impact public safety. Shocker. The funding amendment passed 7-5, and it illuminated pre-existing political rifts on this new council. 5 councilors who voted against the amendment said the proposal unfairly pitted parks against police. That's what they wanted. They love this virtue signaling nonsense. And that's how you get a situation where your downtown core has the highest vacancy rate, Portland, of any major city in the United States. It's not safe. Not safe. Period. So there's that. This is absolutely a false choice, said Councillor Olivia Clark before voting in opposition of the amendment. Councillor Dan Ryan called its passage devastating because the optics are so horrific for Portland. You did what? I thought you guys didn't have enough cops. We don't. We love our parks. We're misguided. This is what we're doing. Council President Elena Pertol-Guni, Council Loretta Smith, and Zimmerman also voted against the proposal. Good call, guys and gals. Novick, who's been vocal about his interest in funding parks programs. I don't have a problem with parks. If your public safety is all squared away, I say, hey, spend some money on the parks. I love a good park. I love hanging out at the park. I love going to the park. I love paddleboarding to a park. You know, who doesn't enjoy a picnic in the park? But if you're doing this number, hey, honey, did you bring the gun? Did you bring the gun? Because I'm looking at that guy over in the bushes over there. Did you at least bring a pocket knife? You ever had that conversation with your partner, with your spouse, with your wife, husband, whatever? Yeah, that's what you do in Seattle. You're like, oh, what's that guy doing over there? This is sketchy. Get ready. Pack the bag. Gotta go. So what I'm hearing in this, apparently, the Portland Metro Chamber gets to run this town and tell everybody under vague threat what we can or cannot do with our budget. Merlot shot back. Come on, Novick. He supported the plan. Decision comes after a marathon meeting. We got a bunch of other nonsense. We got some, concern for Portland public safety. What was that one? Concern for Portland police staffing persists as budget cuts considered. And it happened. I mean, just absolutely nutty. Here's a segment that kind of outlines it. Let's take a quick peek here. China Green, we miss her dearly here in Seattle. She was on Fox 13.
Portland City Council meeting stretched for 15 hours as councilors proposed more than 100 amendments to Mayor Keith Wilson's budget proposal.
This comes as Portland faces a budget shortfall of more than $90 million. So we'll bring Sunrise reporter Thomas Schultz back into the mix here, joining us live from City Hall. So Thomas, they planned on a 12-hour meeting. Apparently that wasn't enough. It started at 9 a.m. and it stretched all the way till midnight last night.
Yeah, into a new day, right, Drew? And it's pretty astounding trying to just wrap your head around how many ideas were thrown out there by city councilors at the meeting. 126 proposed amendments were brought up. And guys, it wasn't just councilors who were active. A lot of residents wanted to speak up too, so much that they would have had to allocate 7.5 hours just to get everybody's public comment. At the end of the day, they gave 2 hours. And a lot of those questions, a lot of the topic of conversation was around public safety. Mayor Keith Wilson's budget would add almost $20 million to the collective budgets of police, fire, and Portland street response. And at the same time, the city is facing a deficit of more than $90 million. While some speakers support the effort to increase policing, others say different priorities should be at the forefront.
So I'm here to support the mayor's budget when it comes to fully funding the police so we can hire the amount of people that we need to support Portlanders and the victims that are here.
Police cannot solve our housing affordability crisis. Luxury apartments sit vacant while people languish on waiting lists for affordable housing. Police cannot change the fact that Oregon was number 49 and 50 in the nation for substance use and mental health treatment access.
Now, eventually, city councilors decide.
But that doesn't mean you take funding away from them. There's a lot of things the police can't do. They can't cure cancer. They can't save, the people up on a satellite. They can't, come to your house with the garbage truck and collect garbage either. But you don't cut funding for them. It's logic like that. There's a lot of people that are on drugs here. Police can't. No, that's why you need more cops, you knucklehead.
Decided they would weigh in too on that police budget, see what they had to say about Mayor Keith Wilson's plans. After hearing all this talk, that led Portland Police Chief Bob Day to step up to the dais, give his thoughts.
And we have been talking about this since the 1st of January, and we've been talking about this for almost 35 years of my service in the police bureau. And the reckoning is it a priority or is it not? I believe it is.
Should be. It's just not.
Bob, they're continuing to push for that additional money. And guys, in a 15-hour meeting, you got to think this was just one of many topics talked about. One of the other big ones was also maybe cutting into the budget of Prosper Portland, which is really the economic development agency for the city. So clearly a lot to be determined. They didn't make any decisions around Prosper Portland, didn't make any decisions here with the police budget. They got around a month now, a little bit less, to make a final budget to approve it for the next fiscal year. Guys?
Thank you, Thomas.
And with that being said, if you wonder how Portland got itself into the situation it has, that's how. You got nut jobs on the city council, just like we've had nut jobs. We had absolute nut jobs on the Seattle City Council, and things got so bad. But Seattle's just a scooch more reasonable. That whole keep Portland weird thing, we don't have the same equivalency here in Seattle. We're a little bit less keep Portland weird. And so constituents said, you know what? We're still progressive. We're still really, really strong supporters of Democrat policy. But we understand that maybe, just maybe, we went down the, left-handed road a little too hard, and we got some moderate Democrats in Seattle. And they've been fighting the uphill battle with a bunch of nut jobs running around with these lunatic far-left nut jobs. That's what they are. They're mentally ill. They think we should all embrace a system of communism. And we all know that communism never really worked out. It just doesn't. But hey, let's throw it out there again and we'll see what happens. Let's just transition to that. And in the meantime, making terrible decisions like not supporting economic development. Hey, where does the money come from your city, Portland, to run all these programs? Such a massive, massive portion comes from your downtown core, businesses and everything associated with that, buildings, taxes, excise tax, tax from businesses on the ground floors, tax from all the stuff going on, all of, just economic development and economic activity in your downtown core runs such a huge percentage of every city's budget. And that's why leadership is freaking out when you start cutting things like public safety, because now businesses don't want to come downtown. You're like, downtown Portland, you might get accosted by a homeless guy with no shirt with the machete running around screaming at everybody. Maybe he's got a knife. That literally happened in Portland. Nut job guy, and you know what Portland did? Hands off. Just let him run around. It'll de-escalate. He'll de-escalate himself. We went from a Monday through a Tuesday through a Wednesday, and eventually they took him down. This is literally why businesses are leaving in droves from Portland. Keen, the shoe manufacturer, they just left. Where'd they go? Kentucky. One of my stories yesterday was on Los Angeles, city of Los Angeles. No, it was Chicago, and how Chicago is losing McDonald's in the Loop downtown. And you've got these massive teen takeovers where the teens come in from all the burbs into downtown, and McDonald's is closing a whole bunch of stores down. Is there a correlation, you think, between 400 or 500 kids coming through the downtown core and doing some crazy wilding and sideshows and all kinds of just criminal activity? And you know what Chicago does? They don't arrest them. You know what Oklahoma City just did? I think it was yesterday or the day before. They arrested 150 people doing exactly that. Sideshows. 150 people, one event. Sorry, this was late last week because they held some of these people. It took them so long to process all these people that people were in jail for 4 or 5 days before they could be processed. Oklahoma City doesn't give a rat's ass. You break the law, we're going to arrest you. We're going to prosecute you. Chicago, if you want to get in line, that's how you create greater public safety. Portland, you want to do the same thing? You got to have more cops. It's not that hard to figure out. You got to have people that are going to run around and create a safe environment for you. Not that hard to figure out. And yet, these big blue liberal cities, they just can't seem to get out of their own way. They just keep pulling that gun out and shooting themselves in the foot and wondering why they're walking around with a limp. Anyway, gives me podcasts for days. I mean, we're going to talk about this nonsense. These are some poor decisions being made. Is there the chance that this gets worked around after a bunch of public outcry over defunding the police and giving money to the park system? Yeah, but this is Portland, so don't bank on it. All right, that's it for me on this one. Thanks so much for being here. I'll catch up with you in the next one. Love to have you subscribe, hit that notification bell, all that good stuff. I'll see you in the next segment. Thanks again for being here. Bye for now.